Here, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask COA, because very interestingly po, isa po sa mga napansin natin is the length of disbursement for the 125 million across the different quarters po.
We were satisfied with the number of areas that they have served. So if we can average it based on that, the number of areas, I think it is possible to be spending the said amounts.
Honorable Nika Swansing. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I was just hoping to take this opportunity because COA, the right team from COA is already here. So if I may request the COMSEC, Mr. Chair, and the permission of the Honorable Chairman to pull up some slides on the screen, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
please.
Mr. Chair, these were the same slides that I presented to the Committee on Appropriations during the deliberation on the budget of the Office of the Vice President 2 weeks ago. For those who were not there in the meeting, a very quick summary, Mr. Chair, in the interest of time. So these, the slides were put together based on the different documents submitted by COA in compliance to the subpoenaed duces tecum and accomplishment report submitted by the Office of the Vice President. And here, Mr. Chair, several things to note. Essentially, we have summarized across the 4 quarters in terms of the disbursement of the confidential expenses of the Office of the Vice President, the different audit findings of the Commission on Audit across the 4 different quarters. So for Q4 2022, which is the subject of the notice of disallowance, it was found that there's a 73 million out of 125 million that was considered by COA as disallowed in audit. And then for the succeeding quarters, accordingly, Mr. Chair, you would see here the proportion of the 125 million, which was questioned in the audit order memorandum and not questioned across the succeeding quarters. During the deliberations of the Office of the Vice President, President's budget, I directed a question towards COA to please enlighten us as to the grounds for the notice of disallowance for Q4 2022 and the 3 succeeding quarters which were subjected to the AOM, Mr. Chair. However, during the OVP budget hearing, the representative of COA, Assistant Commissioner Alexander Juliano, said that he was not privy to the information as he was not part of the team handling the confidential expenses. So, Mr. Chair, I believe the team who did the audit is present in today's hearing. So if we may request, Mr. Chair, COA to please enlighten us for the 4 different quarters covered by the notice of the disallowance and the audit order memorandum. May we please request, Mr. Chair, COA to please enlighten us as to the ground. So perhaps, Mr. Chair, we can go quarter by quarter. We can first start with Q4 2022, which was the subject of the notice of disallowance.
Any representative from COA?
Mr. Chair, Attorney Gloria Camora, the State Auditor of
Attorney
the ICFAO,
Camora.
yes, will answer the question
Attorney
of the
Camora, you're
Honorable
recognized.
Congresswoman.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. As to the 2022 notice of disallowance, there were
Ma'am,
3
pakilakasan po ninyo yung boses nyo, hindi marinig.
Okay. There were 3 items that are part of the notice of disallowance. The first one is on the non-submission of documents on the payment of rewards. The second one is charging some items that are not compliant under the rules joint circular. And the third one is non-submission of the revised accomplishment report of the office of the VP to the 3 regulatory offices, which are the Office of the President, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, because what they have submitted was the original one, and they made an amendment, but as of now, they have not resubmitted the amended accomplishment report.
Mr. Chair, if
Please proceed,
COA may
Congresswoman
please
Swansea.
enlighten to explain to us, because it seems a little bit technical po, as to how it was explained by COA. Kung pwede po maipaliwanag po sa atin in non-technical terms as to the grounds for the disallowance po.
COA, paki-simplify po. Please explain it in layman's term.
Yes po. Basically, the disallowances is because hindi po sila nag-submit ng required na documents under the joint circular.
Mr. Chair, if we may move to the next slide.
Please proceed.
ComSec, next slide please. Here, Mr. Chair, shows a breakdown of the different expense items listed in the accomplishment report for Q4 2022 and the 3 succeeding quarters, which were the subject of the AOMs. Mr. Chair, I would like to again throw the question to COA, because it seems to me, I am not an auditor, so it seems to me that across the 3 succeeding quarters, the categories that were flagged as questioned in the AOM are similar across the 3 succeeding quarters. So, pare-pareho po yung naka-orange po. Payment of reward, yung provision of medical and food aid, at saka po payment of incentives or traveling relative to the confidential operation. So, Mr. Chair, if I may request COA to please enlighten us as to the reason why these categories seem to be repeatedly flagged across the succeeding quarters under audit.
COA.
Yes, Mr. Chair. As to the payment of rewards, the joint circular requires a document, the supporting documents evidencing the success of the information gathering. As far as the documents that they have submitted, we are not, so far, we are not satisfied with the documents they have submitted. So we ask them to submit the documents that would satisfy the joint circular. As to the provision of food and medical items, again, we ask them for an explanation, since by themselves, food and medical aid appears to not fall under the expenses allowed by the joint circular. So we are asking for explanation on those items. And then, it's the same with traveling expenses, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, I'll move to my final slide.
You still have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Clarificatory question sa Mr. Chair, kasi at least nandito na ba yung team sa COA. Last slide, please, ComSec. Here, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask COA, because very interestingly po, isa po sa mga napansin natin is the length of disbursement for the 125 million across the different quarters po. Meron po ba na information yung COA as to how how the disbursements were done in terms of the speed by which the disbursements were done? Like for example po, the 125 million in December were spent in 11 days as opposed to in Q3 2023 po, wherein it was spent in 79 days. So kasi po, one thing that we can see as well in the previous slide is regardless of the length of the disbursement or the speed of the disbursement or the areas of surveillance, if you can move to the previous slide, ComSec. Ito po. The numbers of areas under surveillance are different, and the speed of the disbursement is different as well. But it seems like the expenditure patterns are very similar po across categories and across the different quarters. So, meron po bang nakita yung COA with regards to that po, Mr. Chair?
Please wrap up your questions. Pakisagot na lang po, tapos na po kayo.
Mr. Chair, since we were given the data on the areas and they have also submitted the evidences of payments, we did not conduct a study on the speed by which the frequency of the payments, as long as we were satisfied with the number of areas that they have served. So if we can average it based on that, the number of areas, I think it is possible to be spending the said amounts.